Assalamu alaikum. Homosexuality can benefit you if you are a Muslim. If a person intends to do a sin, but he doesn't do that sin out of fear of Allah, this is actually a good deed for him in Islam. So a homosexual person who practices Islam and abstains from homosexuality actually gains the hasanat, gains the benefit from Allah.
Do you really think it's moral to be black? This is a palpably stupid question. Of course it's not moral to be black. It's not immoral to be black. It's something that's out of your control and has absolutely nothing to do with morality. And so is homosexuality. And that means that you have no right to morally judge somebody for their sexual orientation any more than you have the right to judge them for their color of their skin or the shape of their ears.
Before we talk about one of the most famous pseudo-scientific claims on which homosexuality is based, let us appreciate the honorable stance of the Muslim Ummah, which rejects homosexuality, and before all that, it rejected the indecency of consensual fornication. The rejection of these cultures confirms that Islam is the last wall in the face of secularism. The whole world today has been forcibly dyed with secularism, except for our nation. Islam came to prevail. It came so that the word of Allah is the highest.
Waking up every day, I feel my pain today can't go on till my sadness is gone. Feeling all alone, I need someone who's there, need someone to care, someone who cares. Sabrun Jameel.
Homosexuality advocates use many bogus claims to promote and normalize homosexuality. But one of the most important of these claims is that there are genetic factors that drive homosexuality. Surprisingly, the most famous scientific journal in the world, Nature, published a scientific paper which I imagine is the biggest shock in the history of gays. This paper was issued after studying nearly 500,000 genomes. This massive scientific study has established that there is no gay gene. This paper came as a huge shock. A few years before this paper, 8 large studies were conducted on identical twins who share the same genes. These studies were conducted in America, Europe, Australia, and it was found that identical twins sometimes have different sexual orientations. That is, one may be straight, the other is gay. If they have the exact same genes, and our genes control our sexuality, it would seem like a pretty logical conclusion to assume that identical twins would always have the same sexual orientation. This idea has been refuted scientifically, that the issue of homosexuality has nothing to do with genes. In any case, the Nature paper was enough to explain the absurdity of this claim. But if we assume, for the sake of argument, that there are genes affecting homosexual behavior, will this justify homosexuality? There are genes associated with pedophilia. So would pedophilia become permissible? There are genes associated with alcohol addiction. There is a gene called the alcoholism gene. Will this justify not holding the addict legally accountable? As a Muslim, I have never had a desire for alcohol in my life because drinking is not in our culture, and I might carry the alcoholism gene in my DNA. However, I never wanted to drink alcohol in my life, and I don't even care about it. But if the drinking of alcohol gets normalized in my environment, and if it becomes a part of the culture of my city, and if demonstrations calling for freedom of alcohol addiction take place in front of my house, then this desire might ignite in me, and the alcoholism gene will be active enough. And then I will have to resist this desire. This is exactly what is happening with the file of homosexuality. The normalization of homosexuality, the excessive talking about it, and the homosexual scenes in media. All of these issues will generate a love for experimenting with homosexuality among people who may not have thought of it, even for a moment otherwise. So the excessive talking about homosexuality is one of the reasons for its spread. There are attempts by the gay community to spread the culture of homosexuality even among children, and this is a major crime. A child may try suicide simply because he heard about it, and he may try to commit a crime as a play matter. Talking about homosexuality in front of children might incite them to do it. The idea of homosexuality isn't just an atypical culture in depicting the relationship between man and man and a woman and a woman. Homosexuality has become an ideology that is intended to permeate all forms of life, culture, art, language, and everything. The problem of homosexuality is not only being one of the biggest sins in Islam, but it also represents a danger to humanity as a whole. Did you know that 3/4 of AIDS cases are among homosexuals? In fact, AIDS is a gay-related immune deficiency, and it is used to be called the gay plague. Did you know that men who have sex with men globally have 22 times higher risk of acquiring HIV compared to all adult men? Did you know that 83% of syphilis cases occur among homosexuals? Did you know that gays have 17 times higher risk of developing anal cancer compared to all adults? There are even medical crises that occur in many cities due to the spread of homosexuality in them. There are new strains of meningitis between only homosexuals. Promoting homosexuality isn't only a war against the Lord of the worlds, but rather a war against humanity. I'd like to say that scientists identified genes associated with criminal behavior in humans that they called the crime gene. Would this justify committing crimes? Is there a court in the world that takes the activity of the gene as an excuse to drop a criminal case? I wonder why homosexuals used the gene argument. There is no justification in medicine, reason, or law for a crime because it is a result of gene activity. There is no gene that makes you good or another that makes you bad, and there is no gene that makes you a criminal, an addict, a homosexual, or an imam. The gene is basically a group of letters that represent a nitrogenous bases found in DNA. When a part of gene is decoded, functional proteins begin to appear. The gene is completely neutral. Whereas I, by my behavior, turn one gene on and the other off. The relationship between genes and behaviors is synchronous, not causal. Anyone who comprehends this point will understand the falsehood of the genetic argument. It isn't the activity of a gene that drives the sexual behavior. There is a simultaneous occurrence of a gene activity and a specific behavior, but the gene activity is in the cause of the behavior. There is no sane person today who says that genes themselves generate behavior. There is a whole science today that studies in one of its branches the relationship between genes and human behavior. It is called epigenetics. One of the foundations of this science is that the gene activity is based on behavior. That is to say, the behavior activates genes. So fornication is a product of lust. Addiction is a product of lust. Homosexuality is a product of lust. The inclinations of human psyche are responsible for man's behavior, not his genes. Man has absolute free will and is thus responsible for everything he does. Genes have no role in man's making of moral or immoral decisions. Man was created free and mandated. Wassalamu alaikum.